Physics doesn't know much about time. That is, we have, in a sense, uncovered the fundamental unity at the basis of the diversity of the universe. We've discovered the field of non-duality, the unified field or superstring field. And from that perspective, it's a little clearer what time is. It's very clear what space is. Time is still a bit of a mystery. What quantum cosmology tells us, the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, is that time is a perspective. Ultimately, there is no evolution or time. There's just the eternal now, the entire universe existing in this moment, past, present, and future, collapsed to the present. But within that grand unity, within that grand reality, you can take a perspective in which the emergence of a time parameter, an emergence of a sense of time, can be sort of conceived. So within that conception, the experience of the flow of time is possible. In a state of consciousness, we call it waking consciousness. In other states of consciousness, transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, unity consciousness, there are 7 states of consciousness, each with completely different experiences of reality. The concept of time is different. In the transcendent meditative state, there is no time. In enlightenment or cosmic consciousness, you have the timeless along with the flow of time. In unity consciousness, there is no time, nothing but unity. Unity basically playing, interacting with itself. So again, the emergence or dissolution of time, it's a perspective that is valid in different states of consciousness. So it's a consciousness-dependent thing. Yes, time emerges from the timeless. Duality, diversity, emerges from unity. And what quantum mechanics says, and I don't mean old-fashioned quantum mechanics, even quantum field theory, which replaced quantum mechanics 50 years ago, but unified quantum field theory, superstring theory, which replaced everything else about 12 years ago. From that ultimate scientific perspective, unity is all that there is. Universal, unified field of intelligence, which gives rise to the appearance of a diversified universe. An ocean of being that is shimmering, vibrant, dynamic within itself. And this ocean of existence percolates superstring like ginger ale percolates effervescent bubbles. So we live in a world of bubbles, superstrings. These little bubbles vibrate, these strings vibrate. And depending upon how a given string is vibrating to the left or to the right, or this way or that way, that string behaves like a graviton, a quark, a lepton, an electron, a gravitino, a photon of light. All the particles and forces of nature, so-called, are just the different vibrational states of these miniature superstrings, which themselves are just the bubbles of this ocean of existence, the unified field or superstring field. That's the reality. Everything else is really just unity in motion. But from a standpoint of ignorance, where the field of unity is hidden from view, because we don't see the unity on a sensory level. In a sensory-dominated life, in a sense-dominated state of consciousness, like waking consciousness, then diversity is real. In the meditative state, transcendental consciousness, the human mind, awareness expands to identify, to become the unified field. In that level, diversity doesn't exist, only unity. When the experience of universal consciousness is stabilized, along with waking activity and dreaming and sleep, then you have non-duality witnessing duality. That's called enlightenment with a small e, nirvana, nirvikalpa samadhi. More enriched or mature states of enlightenment, like unity consciousness, then you actually start to see, to live the scientific truth of the unity of life. You see all diversity, but you understand it, you experience it as nothing but unity, nothing but waves of the unified field. So, is diversity real? Well, in waking consciousness it is. In the meditative state it is not. In unity consciousness it is not, because the diversity is seen in the light of unity. Is time real? Also, it depends on the state of consciousness. Life is different in different states of consciousness, and there are at least 7 states. Sleeping, completely different from waking. Dreaming reality, also different from waking. Meditative state has its own reality, transcendent, beyond time, beyond any relative experience. Cosmic consciousness, different. God consciousness, different. Glorious, divine. Unity consciousness, the ultimate, different. So if you ask me a straightforward question like what is time, I can't give you a straightforward answer. You have to ask me, what is the experience of time in unity consciousness, the meditative state, waking consciousness, and then I can answer. The scientific reality is the universe is structured in layers of creation. There's the macroscopic sensory world of day-to-day objects. It's called the world of classical physics. There's the world of the molecule and the atom. That's the world of quantum mechanics. It's not only smaller, by the way, it's completely different, qualitatively different. It has its own logic, its own language, its own mathematics. So, not just quantitatively, but qualitatively different. Then you have the world of the nucleus and the subnuclear particles. The world of quantum field theory has its own math, its own language, its own reality, its own logic. And then beyond all of that is the field of absolute unity, non-duality, the world of the unified field, technically called the second quantized superstring field. And each of those levels has its own reality. And we are all of them. You can grab me by the arm and drag me out the room. You can grab me by the molecules, the atoms, and grab my nuclei and drag me out the room. It's exactly the same, but perceived from different levels, at different levels of reality. So these are worlds within worlds within worlds. In the process of meditation, you take the waking awareness, the sensory awareness, sensory perceptions, close the eyes, and through an appropriate technique, the awareness gets drawn powerfully within to experience quieter, subtler, deeper levels of mind, corresponding to deeper and deeper levels of reality, fathoming the whole range of existence, coming to rest ultimately in the field of absolute unity, the meditative state, samadhi, pure consciousness, where the surface of diversity gives way to fundamental unity. Those are the whole range of reality, range of experience. In the meditative state, you leave behind the whole world of relativity and you identify with the unmanifest field of unity. And then enlightenment is just a question of stabilizing that inner silence and inner unity along with outer dynamism, along with waking activity, along with dreaming, along with deep sleep. So you become a universal witness to the body sleeping, an unbounded witness to the mind dreaming, or a witness to thinking, speech, action. So that is one level of enlightenment, where inner unbounded universal consciousness, universal consciousness is stabilized within, along with outer activity, outer diversity, outer dynamism. It's a stage of enlightenment. It's called nirvana. There are higher levels of development still, but in each of those levels, reality is different. There are many answers to the question, why life? And those answers depend upon one's level of consciousness. But speaking as we are in waking consciousness, purpose of life is to grow. Expansion of happiness. Growth of happiness, growth of intelligence, growth of power, growth of knowledge. Expansion of happiness is the purpose of life until infinity becomes the living reality of life. We evolve in steps of increasing accomplishment, achievement, fulfillment. We work for, we strive, we earn, we win a Mercedes-Benz. Some happiness, temporary happiness, some satisfaction is gained with that. But before too long, undoubtedly, we're going to want a Lamborghini. I'm using a very materialistic example, but no achievement of any state of wealth or political achievement or stature is fulfilling for long. Relative fulfillment, but the nature of the mind is to grow. Evolution is the fundamental nature of life. So, the whole purpose of life is to grow in knowledge, grow in power, until, if it could be possible, infinity is lived in life. Because anything less than the infinite happiness will never be fulfilling for long. And we're going to keep coming back here until we have achieved that ultimate fulfillment. And that fulfillment is sometimes called liberation, because in that state of absolute contentment, you are free. You have fulfilled all possible desires. You can achieve that expansion, that fulfillment, the hard way, by gaining one achievement after another, trying to become the wealthiest man on earth, the President of the United States, or whatever it may be. Or you can dive within and discover that deeper and deeper levels of mind are more intrinsically blissful. And the source of mind in the self, pure subjectivity, the nature of our consciousness is bliss, absolute contentment. And saturating ourselves with that inner bliss, the goal of life, which is infinity, is lived. So consciousness expands and expands, and contentment and satisfaction and fulfillment, comprehension grows out of the smallness of a child's comprehension. When you want a lollipop and that's it, your life depends on it. Your desires, your scope of awareness becomes bigger and bigger, extends to family, extends to society, extends to global concerns, expands to infinity. That's the state of enlightenment. And that's gained most systematic, certainly most quickly, through meditation that delivers the mind directly to the transcendent. Soak in it and bring as much of that bliss and silence out with you into activity as the mind can contain, and then do it again. Tomorrow, do it again. And that really brings the maximum speed of expansion, of evolution, of ultimate fulfillment. Meditation is a uniquely human skill, a uniquely human gift. Like languages too, we have the ability to grow, to comprehend big things, to achieve big things. Language is one such tool. Language actually develops our capabilities, our ability to thought, to achieve, to conceptualize, well beyond the animal kingdom. Another such tool that is as powerful, indeed as fundamental, is transcending. That means meditation, to take the mind directly to its source, to the infinite field of consciousness. Like language, that is another evolutionary tool to develop the brain. And you're absolutely right. The act of transcending, expanding beyond boundaries, experiencing the source of thought, ocean of creativity, reservoir of intelligence, it's powerfully evolutionary. It completely and dramatically and instantly changes the brain. The meditative state is absolutely unlike any other state of consciousness. Waking, dreaming, sleeping, hypnosis, drug-induced. It's completely different. It is characterized, in a nutshell, by global EEG coherence. That means the entire brain is functioning in a synchronous and coherent way. In waking consciousness, the electrical activity of the brain is completely scattered. There's very little coherence or very little integrated functioning of the brain. One part of the brain is hardly talking to another. In the meditative state, the state of unbounded awareness, the whole brain participates in that experience in what's this global synchronous electrical activity. It's absolutely striking, the most striking thing a neuroscientist will ever see. And one thing about that experience is that the entire brain is engaged. If you're doing physics, if you're playing music, this little sliver is engaged. Only the meditative state, unbounded awareness, samadhi, engages the total brain and develops the brain holistically. This global EEG coherence may be a fleeting experience during transcendental state, but with regular practice it becomes more and more stabilized, so that even in activity, the whole brain remains more coherent, and that orderly brain functioning is fundamental to intelligence, creativity, learning ability, academic performance, moral reasoning, emotional maturity, psychological stability. Everything good about the brain depends on its orderly functioning. And now, and this is very exciting to me as an educator, orderly brain functioning can be systematically developed in anyone of any age. Someone in a nursing home for the elderly, a child in a school with ADHD, who may have very limited EEG coherence, very little orderliness of brain functioning. Those individuals can develop the orderliness of the brain in a period of weeks and months and over the years. IQ, creativity goes up at an age where they're not supposed to. In adults, where the intelligence is supposed to shrink and the gray matter itself begins to wither away. All of that is basically because with the brain, the rule is use it or lose it. And only the meditative state engages the total brain and develops the brain holistically, which, yes, shows up as highly statistically significant improvements in intelligence and creativity and learning ability and everything. But more important than any of that is the stabilization of inner bliss, inner unboundedness, which we call enlightenment. That's really the goal of life. Being a little smarter, a little more successful, yeah, that's good. Living the bliss of life 24 hours a day, even during the depth of sleep, that's really what we're here for. Happiness, ultimately, is where it's at. And it's our choice how much happiness we want to experience in life. A little bit, more, or a lot. And this gift of meditation, gift of transcending, I'm not talking about concentration, works the mind, or contemplation, which engages the mind, or visualization that also engages the mind. We're talking about going beyond the mind, beyond thought, beyond any fine, faint feeling to the experience of infinity, unbounded awareness that's beyond senses, beyond the intellect. That fundamental state, the most fundamental of human experiences, is what's key. And it belongs in education. It's fundamental to education. And thank God, finally, it's being embraced by education. And hundreds of thousands of students at hundreds and hundreds of schools today have access to this experience as part of the curriculum. Within 2 years, 3 years, it'll be everywhere. There is a new era of maturity, and we're not there yet, but we have the tools to get there, where everyone is a leader. Everyone is fully competent, fully capability to conduct their own lives, not just for their own best interest, but with an expanded comprehension, expanded thinking, expanded global awareness that their thoughts, actions, deeds are of maximum evolutionary support, evolutionary benefit to the whole society, to the whole environment. And that's the difference between having a narrowly cramped self-centered comprehension and a naturally expanded comprehension, which results from the development of consciousness. In that expanded state, we're all perfectly capable of governing our own lives, not just again for our best health and personal benefit, but even for the maximum benefit of the whole society. That just requires a more comprehensive type of thinking. And that is our birthright. We are hardwired with the capability of thinking globally, virtually infinite spontaneous computing ability to know spontaneously what is in the best interests of not just me, but of the whole society. Citizens who are educated with that inherent capability of self-governance, that's the future. So government in the past, you could say, was government from the outside in. Government by coercion, by fear of punishment. And by the way, fear of punishment and deterrence to crime have never been very effective at preventing crime. Far better to equip individuals with the natural ability to live not just a crime-free life, but a maximally expansionary, evolutionary life. That's what education can achieve. By 18 years old, when a person graduates high school, that person should be enlightened. They should be living unbounded awareness. And if they're not, there is something wrong with education. And there is something wrong with education. But that is changing. We have the evidence-based, scientifically sound educational programs to fully develop the summit of human potential, which we're born. It's our birthright. If you look at the structure of the brain, you'll see that it is engineered to live divinity. It is actually hardwired to live infinity. Without the software, without the programming, we're not accessing the incredible hardware of the human brain. It's just going wasted. And education should provide that technique, that knowledge that allows the individual to live, to act infinity. And that is coming. And at that point, a leader becomes, kind of superfluous. Maybe as a figurehead, but people will be self-governing. No police will be needed on the streets at that point. Coming back to school is for people who fail to graduate. And most people do come back, because there's a lot to learn. And it often takes many goes around before all of life's critical lessons are learned. Yes, there are shortcuts, and meditation is an age-old shortcut, and a powerful shortcut that can achieve that goal in a matter of years, not lifetimes. Now, you may be more fortunate than most in having, of course, some time when we are localized and we have this localized sense of self, but at other times when you seem to be unlocalized, accessing the infinite, the universal. Most people, honestly, will go through a lifetime and never have that glimpse. So, fortunately, you're among the fortunate, I'd say, minority who has occasional access to our inner infinite nature. And of course, when we get caught up in activity and the stress of our pressures, that memory can fade and we're left with the localized sense of the urgency of now. Meditation basically allows the awareness to alternate from the localized, waking experience to the unlocalized, universal aspect of our innermost reality. And swinging the awareness back and forth from localized to unbounded, you simply gain over time, like doing eye exercises, the flexibility, the neurological flexibility to maintain inner absolute silence, inner unboundedness, along with the outer dynamism. And that does become, at a point, permanent, where a steamroller can run over your toe, and you may shout bloody hell because it hurts, but at the same time you're absolutely unshaken, unfazed inside, because you remain anchored to being, to a reality that is so huge that the rise and fall of civilizations is barely an eye blink. And where certainly a roller or something running over your toe is of absolutely no consequence at all. Living that inner grandeur with the joy of outer relative diversity of experience as well, that is waking activity along with unboundedness and infinite contentedness within. That's fullness of life. That's 100% inner life with the ability to enjoy 100% outer life. And not just outer life as it is today, outer life using our full brain potential with maximum intelligence and creativity. So that's what life is meant to be, 100% inner, 100% outer. With someone who's already occasionally experiencing unbounded awareness, it won't take long. It's just alternating unboundedness with relative experience, waking consciousness regularly, like twice a day meditating, and having that unbounded awareness for a period of months or a year or two, and you'll have absolutely the goal of life. 100% inner, 100% outer. Reality is different in different states of consciousness. Once unbounded awareness is stabilized, once you know the self, so intimately familiar with the self you could never be out of it, then you will know, oh, I have always been, always will be. I am beyond time. I am immortality. But if you're not, and that is the truth. Right now, simply by being awake, you are that inside. But for those for whom that isn't the actual experiential reality of the moment, there is a place to go. One has to gain that experience. It would be, unfortunately, someone who's living that level of life would be deluding somebody to say, you have nowhere to go, you have nothing to gain, you are already infinite, you've always been infinite. Well, that may be true for his perspective, but it's not your living reality. And until it is your living reality, you will experience suffering, and you will not experience unbounded bliss. So yes, there is a path, but once one achieves that goal, one can look back and realize one was always there. But that's not the reality of waking consciousness, and it would be deluding oneself and very counterproductive to have the attitude that there's nothing to gain when there is something to gain. The level of feeling, one's emotional life, is where we really live our life. It's the nearest thing to self. It's closer to one's innermost self than the intellect or the mind or the senses or the body. So emotions are very important. They're very deep. They're very powerful. More powerful, more fundamental than emotion is being. Gaining the field of being in the state of enlightenment is the way to ensure a happy emotional life. Blissful, purposeful, evolutionary emotions. In fact, I would say the ability to love, which is the deepest, most profound, most divine of the emotions, really is not very mature until one gains unbounded awareness. And the reason is, until one gains that state, for one thing, there's a certain amount of stress. It is stress, and stress lodged in the brain physiology, that obstructs our continuous experience of our own inner unbounded blissful reality. So if there's stress, until there's enlightenment, there's stress. Stress pinches the emotions. It colors and limits the emotions. And the other thing is, until one has that infinite contentment within, one is A, not fully content, B, not absolutely full within, and C, not unshakably secure within, not invincible within, with unbounded, unshakable immortality that can be untouched by anything, inner contentment, one really becomes invincible. With that state of inner stability, inner invincibility, inner fullness, inner bliss, the heart is basically liberated. The emotions are free to flow without fear, without vulnerability. One is free to give. One has so much to give. One has infinity to give and nothing to lose. And it's like living the life of a billionaire. You can spend freely and not worry about the pinch. I'm running out of money. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. You have so much to give, and there's no pinch associated with giving abundantly. Like that, love and the ability to give abundantly depends upon the size of one's inner life, inner awareness. So emotional life really becomes rich, and love becomes full and flowing when inner stability, inner bliss, inner unboundedness is gained. And people talk of the love of God, and I'm a pious person, I'm not a pious person. Honestly, the love of God has almost no meaning before the state of enlightenment, because the ability to love, as significant as it may seem from time to time, is honestly so limited that it doesn't even do dignity to the notion of the love of God. So first, get enlightened. There's no harm in being devoted to God in the meantime, but really get enlightened and then understand what the love of God means. I am first and foremost not of this room. First and foremost, you and I and everyone are cosmic. We are unbounded universal intelligence, an intelligence so vast, so immortal, so internal, that we give rise continuously to the birth of an infinity of universes. That is the cosmic magnitude and grandeur of who we are. Resting on that universal reality is the very, very, very small me that you see. With my intellect, which is relatively feeble, my mind and memory, which are certainly quite limited, my physiology, which is puny and relatively weak. But all of that, at least, allows this universal I, which is the eye of man, the eye of the elephant, the eye of you, the eye of me, to see and enjoy its relative creation. We have a significant role in this universe. Without the human being, we are like a conduit that allows the unified field, which is a million times smaller than the proton. It is everywhere, but you don't see that unified reality except deep, deep, deep within. But the human nervous system and human awareness is a conduit whereby that abstract silence at the basis of the activity and dynamism of the universe gets to see itself. That unified field creates creation, but it doesn't have eyes. It doesn't have ears to actually live within and enjoy the incredible grandeur of the creation. Now, my eyes are so limited, and the picture it gives of the universe is pretty puny. However, in higher states of consciousness, in God consciousness, in unity consciousness, the senses become so refined, so acute, that the celestial reality of this world is perceptible to me and perceptible to that ocean of being. To get back to your answer, you and I are unbounded, immortal, infinite. That is our big, grandest reality, our immortal nature. But we have the joy. Variety is the spice of life. We have the variety. Most importantly, we have the life. Without the cake, the spice is meaningless. A spice cake without the cake is nothing. So we have the life. But the spice of life, the variety of life, the changing relativity, is experienced in creation by virtue of the human nervous system. Yes, by the nervous system of a dog, but not the totality. A dog can't really live the reality of the unity of life. That's our privilege as human beings. We're hardwired for it. So we have a surprisingly important role to play in this creation. And our job, you could say, is to live the two realities of inner unbounded immortality and bliss while enjoying and playing in this beautiful divine playfield of relativity, and really doing honor to the Creator by knowing, living, enjoying the grandeur and divinity of the creation in which we live.